She heard it clearly. Bury him alive before sunrise. The words crawled to the hospital vent like a whisper from hell. Keisha froze, the plastic water cup slipping from her hand and shattering on the linoleum floor. She wasn't dreaming. She wasn't high from pain meds. Someone, somewhere above her room, had just planned murder, and the man they wanted dead was Ethan Harland, one of America's richest white billionaires. If this already made your blood boil, hit like and subscribe right now, because stories like this are still happening, and the world needs to hear them. The hallway outside her door was silent, except for the slow beep of her heart monitor. Keisha, 29, dark brown skin, Detroit-born accountant, had checked in for a simple appendectomy. Not to overhear a death sentence, but she could hear every word echoing to the vent above her bed. 72 hours. Declare him brain dead, no autopsy. Quick burial. The board signs over everything. Her pulse spiked. Brain dead? Burial? She pressed her ear closer to the vent, praying she was wrong. Then a second voice, younger, anxious, hissed, "Someone's listening." Her heart stopped. Footsteps. Heavy. Getting closer. Keisha staggered back, clutching her stomach. The stitches screamed. Blood seeped through her gown, but her mind was already in survival mode. She grabbed her phone, her hoodie, and stumbled toward the door. The fluorescent lights flickered as she pushed into the corridor. Every sound echoed. The squeak of her socks, the hum of ceiling vents, the metallic thud of footsteps behind her. "Stop her!" a man's voice barked. Keisha turned a corner, adrenaline drowning out pain. She slammed through the emergency stairwell door, nearly falling down the steps. Her hand clutched the railing. Her other pressed her wound. "They can't see me. They can't know I heard." But the voices chased her down. "She's bleeding. Follow the trail." Tears blurred her vision. She kicked open another door and ducked into a dim laundry room. The machines hummed softly, hiding her ragged breath. She slid down against the washing machine, blood warm under her palm. Her mind spun. She just overheard a plot to kill one of the most powerful men in America, and whoever they were, they knew she existed now. Somewhere above the hum of dryers, a single truth sank in. If she didn't run before sunrise, she'd never see daylight again. Keisha waited until the footsteps faded, her pulse pounding so loud she could barely hear. The laundry room smelled of bleach and damp cloth, but it felt safe in the world outside that door. Her hoodie was soaked through where the stitches had torn open. She tore a strip from a towel and pressed it against her side, biting her lip to keep from crying out. Every instinct screamed at her to call 911, but what would she say? "Hi, I overheard a murder plot through an air vent." A black woman, bleeding, half-dressed, in a rich white hospital? They'd think she was delusional. She forced herself to move. Each step felt like glass under her bare feet. The hallway beyond was dim, lights flickering every few meters. At the far end, a shadow moved, too tall, too still to be a nurse. She turned the other way, clutching the wall for balance. The exit sign glowed faint red above a steel door. She pushed through it and stumbled into the night air. Cold wind hit her face, mixing with the salt of her tears. Outside, the hospital parking lot was nearly empty. A security guard sat in a booth, scrolling through his phone. Keisha limped toward him, waving weakly. "Please, help me," she gasped. The guard squinted. "Ma'am, are you a patient?" "You can't. They're trying to kill someone inside." She cut him off. "The billionaire, Ethan Harland. They're going to bury him alive." He frowned, lowering his flashlight. "Ma'am, calm down. You're bleeding. Maybe you need to sit down." "I'm not crazy," she shouted. "I heard them. They're coming after me too." He muttered something into his radio, slow and doubtful. "Yeah, we got a female patient outside, possibly confused." Keisha's stomach dropped. She didn't wait to hear more. She turned and ran into the street, headlights flashing past as horns blared. Her legs shook, but fear gave her power. She didn't stop until she reached the next block, ducking into a dark alley behind a diner. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Unknown number. She froze. The message read, "Stay quiet or you'll join him underground." Her hands trembled. She dropped the phone, tears blurring her eyes. She wanted to scream, to wake the world, but no one would believe her. Not like this, not looking like her. She sank against the cold brick wall, breath trembling, blood drying on her hands. If she wanted to survive, she'd need proof. Someone powerful, someone who could listen. She closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "Find help, Keisha. Find someone who can fight them." The neon from the diner flickered over her face, reflecting in her eyes, a mix of fear and rising fire. She wasn't just running anymore. She was planning to fight back. The city was barely awake when Keisha stepped off the curb, hoodie zipped tight against the chill. She clutched her phone like a lifeline, scrolling through Ethan Harlan's name. Article after article showed the same smile: white billionaire, philanthropist, Silicon Valley savior, and the man she'd just heard about to be buried alive. Her thumb paused on one image. Ethan standing beside a tall black attorney. Malik Miles, founder of Miles Justice, a civil rights law firm in downtown Detroit. "That's him," she whispered. "If anyone believes me, it'll be him." The pain in her side was sharp but steady. She hailed a rideshare with trembling hands, using a fake name. The driver barely looked at her, just nodded and muttered, "Downtown?" "Yeah," she said, staring out the window as the skyline blurred past. Inside Malik's office, the morning sun spilled through floor-to-ceiling windows, lighting rows of legal books. Malik, mid-40s, composed, with the kind of presence that made rooms quiet, looked up when his assistant rushed in. "Sir, there's a woman here. She says it's about Ethan Harlan." He frowned. At this hour? Before he could finish, Keisha stumbled to the doorway, pale, shaking, hoodie stained dark near the ribs. "They're killing him," she blurted. "They're going to bury Ethan Harlan alive." Malik stood slowly. "Miss, you need medical help? I need you to listen," she snapped. "They said 72 hours. No autopsy. Quick burial. I heard it through a vent at Mercy Valley Hospital." Something in her tone, raw, terrified, made him stop. "You said Mercy Valley?" She nodded, gripping the chair to stay upright. "They know I heard. They shot at me. Look." She pulled back the hoodie, showing the soaked bandage. Malik's calm cracked for the first time. He crossed the room, handed her a towel, and lowered his voice. "Sit down, Miss Keisha." "Keisha Bryant." "All right, Keisha, tell me everything you heard." She did. Every word, every sound, the footsteps, the text that said stay quiet. When she finished, the room was silent except for the hum of the air conditioner. Malik leaned back, eyes narrowed. "I know Ethan," he said finally. "We've worked on community grants together. He called me last week about restructuring his company. Said there were people he couldn't trust." He met her eyes. "You just confirmed what I feared." Keisha swallowed hard. "You believe me? I'd be a fool not to." He turned to his desk, grabbed his phone, and started dialing. "We'll need proof. Blood tests, hospital records. Something the law can't ignore. Because if what you're saying is true, someone powerful is already covering their tracks." Keisha exhaled shakily, relief and fear tangled together. "Then what do we do?" Malik looked at her, steady, determined. "We do what they never expect a black woman to do." He smiled faintly. "We fight back with the truth." Malik slammed a file on the desk. "They're not just killing him, they're erasing him." The fluorescent light flickered across a single medical report. HN12 compound, physician authorization, DR. Samuel Knox. Keisha's voice trembled. "What's that supposed to mean?" He looked up, jaw tight. "It means Ethan Harlan isn't dead. They've poisoned him to look that way. If this happened right in front of you, what would you do? Tell me in the comments. I read every one. And if you want justice as much as I do, hit subscribe." By afternoon, Malik's office had transformed into a war room. Screens glowed with hospital data, encrypted calls, and legal drafts. Keisha sat wrapped in a blanket, wincing each time she moved. Her phone buzzed again, another message from the unknown number. "You should have stayed quiet." She turned the screen toward Malik. "They know I'm here." He didn't flinch. "Let them. Fear is what keeps people silent." "That's not us." A moment later, his assistant burst in. "Dr. Boone's on the line." He confirmed it. HN-12 is a restricted neurotoxin used in Cold War experiments to mimic brain death. Keisha's stomach twisted. "So they actually paralyze him," Malik finished. "Body shuts down, mind still alive. They plan to bury him conscious." She covered her mouth, eyes filling. "My God!" He leaned forward, voice low but burning. "They move too fast. We can stop them if we get an emergency court order before the burial." He began typing, his fingers a blur. "Judge Ellison owes me one from a wrongful death case. If she signs off, the hospital must freeze all procedures until an independent medical review." Keisha blinked through tears. "You think she'll believe us?" "She won't have to," Malik said. "We'll have proof." He printed the toxicology report and sealed it in a folder. "Grab your coat. We're going downtown." Outside, the sky had turned copper, evening light spilling through glass towers as they sped toward the courthouse. Keisha clutched the folder like it was oxygen. At every red light, her mind replayed the words, "Bury him alive." For the first time, she wasn't just a witness. She was the only thing standing between truth and a grave. The courthouse doors loomed ahead, tall and cold. Malik placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "This is it, Keisha. They'll expect you to break down, to sound unsure. Don't give them that." She nodded, breathing through the pain. "I'm done being scared." When they stepped inside, the security guards turned to stare. A wounded black woman and a black lawyer walking into a white marble courtroom at sunset. To most, they looked out of place. But to Malik Miles, it was the exact place they were meant to be. The courthouse lights had dimmed by the time the judge's pen hit paper. "Motion granted," she said. "Effective immediately. No burial, no cremation, until a medical reevaluation is complete." Keisha exhaled for what felt like the first time in hours. Malik's grip on her shoulder was firm but calm. "You did it," he whispered. "Now we make sure they can't hide him." An hour later, the night stretched across Napa Valley. 2 black SUVs rolled through iron gates toward Noble Oaks Memorial, the private mortuary owned by the Harlan family. The air smelled of lilies and secrets. Inside, a nervous manager adjusted his glasses. "We're closed," he stammered. Malik held up the signed order. "Not anymore." Federal Marshal Bennett stepped forward, badge gleaming. "Open the chamber." "Now." The man hesitated. "Sir, the family requested a sealed service. Unseal it," Malik said, voice like steel, "or I'll have you cited for obstruction." Keys rattled. Bolts turned. The door creaked open to reveal a polished mahogany casket resting beneath soft gold light. The air felt too still, too rehearsed. Keisha's heart thudded in her chest. "Ethan," she whispered. The lid lifted with a groan. There he was, Ethan Harlan, pale, motionless, skin waxen but not yet gone. A young ER doctor from Malik's team leaned in, pressing 2 fingers to Ethan's neck. The room froze. Then softly, pulse faint but present. Keisha's knees gave out. Malik caught her before she hit the floor. "He's alive," she gasped. "Oh my God, he's really alive." Dr. Ray Chin pulled a syringe from his bag, a vial of clear liquid faintly tinted blue. "Antidote. It won't wake him instantly, but it'll stop the decline." He injected it into Ethan's foreline with practiced precision. Seconds crawled by, then a twitch, a breath, a flutter beneath his eyelids. The air changed. It wasn't death's silence anymore. It was the sound of a life clawing its way back. Malik exhaled slowly. "You just saved a man for his own grave." Keisha stood trembling, tears streaking her face. "I didn't save him alone." Malik's gaze softened. "No, but you were the only one who heard and refused to look away." Outside, sirens wailed faintly in the valley. Maybe police, maybe the men who tried to silence her. Malik turned to the mortuary manager. "If anyone asks, you saw nothing. From this moment forward, he's under federal protection." The man nodded, pale as the walls. As the team wheeled Ethan's body out on a stretcher, Keisha glanced back at the empty casket. The plaque on it read, Ethan Harland, gone too soon. She wiped her tears and whispered, not anymore. The night wind swept through the open doors as they drove off into the dark, carrying a billionaire who'd been declared dead and a woman who'd just rewritten the truth. By morning, the headlines were everywhere. Whistleblower claims billionaire was buried alive. Cable anchors shouted over each other. Hashtags trended faster than news could verify them. Keisha sat on Malik's office couch, a cup of coffee shaking in her hands. Her face was pale, her voice quiet. They're saying I made it up. Malik looked up from his phone. They're scared, Keisha. That's what people do when the truth threatens their money. Across the TV screen, a new clip played. Hospital security footage, grainy, timestamp from that night. Keisha, barefoot, bleeding, sprinting down the corridor. The cheering below read, unstable witness. Hospital confirmed psychiatric evaluation. Her throat tightened. They're painting me as crazy. Malik muted the screen. That's how they bury people like you, not in graves, but in rumors. She stood, pacing. If I was white, they'd call me brave. He didn't answer, but the silence agreed with her. A knock at the door interrupted them. Malik's assistant entered, her face pale. Tristan Harlan's lawyers just filed a motion to challenge a court order. They want a mental evaluation before your testimony. Keisha laughed bitterly. Of course they do. Her voice cracked. They can't let a black woman be the reason the world sees their corruption. Malik rose, steady as ever. Then we don't hide. We go public before they twist it. He pulled a tablet from his briefcase, loading a secure live feed setup. We'll record your statement. No edits, no studio, just you. Keisha hesitated. You think people will believe me? He met her eyes. They already want to. You just have to give them a reason to stop doubting. That evening, in a quiet conference room overlooking the city, Keisha sat under soft light, camera blinking red. Her voice was steady now. Control fire beneath calm. My name is Keisha Bryant. I didn't imagine it. I didn't hallucinate. I heard them plan to bury Ethan Harlan alive, and I ran because I wanted to live too. They said a woman like me would never be believed. But I'm still here, and so is he. When the video went live, the internet exploded. Half the comments called her a hero. The other half called her a liar. But the number that mattered, 4.2 million views, climbed every hour. Keisha scrolled through the comments silently. We believe you, Keisha. Protect this woman. She saved him, now protect her. Malik placed a hand on her shoulder. You've done more than most ever will. She looked out the window at the glowing skyline, exhaustion softening into resolve. They tried to bury him, she said quietly, and now they're trying to bury me. Malik's gaze hardened. Then we dig up the truth one more time. The next morning, sunlight spilled across the safe house floor. Keisha barely slept. Every blink replayed Ethan's still face, the sound machines keeping him alive. Then came Malik's knock. He stepped in, phone in hand, eyes tired but smiling. He's awake. Her heart stopped. What? He opened his eyes, said your name. Keisha's breath caught. She grabbed her jacket without thinking. Take me to him. The drive to the federal facility was silent, except for the hum of tires on asphalt. When they entered the sterile white hallway, DR, Boone met them with a faint grin. He's weak but conscious. Short memory gaps, some slurred speech, but he's aware. Inside the ICU room, Ethan Harlan lay pale but breathing steady. His blue eyes fluttered open when he heard the door. Keisha, he whispered. Her knees nearly buckled. She moved closer, her voice breaking. You remember me? He nodded faintly. You ran. Tears blurred her vision. You heard me? I heard everything. You kept talking in the dark. Malik stepped closer, his voice soft but firm. Mr. Harlan, you were poisoned. They planned to bury you alive. You're safe now. Ethan turned his head, weak but certain. My brother did this. Tristan. That single name was enough. By afternoon, Federal agents filed charges, media vans circled courthouse, and every major outlet ran the headline. Black woman's testimony saves billionaire buried alive. But fame wasn't what Keisha felt. It was weight. The weight of being believed too late. She sat beside Malik in the press room as Ethan appeared via video, voice low but strong. "I owe my life to Keisha Bryant," he said. She didn't have to care. The world doubted her. But she spoke the truth when no one else would. That courage, that's America's heartbeat. The reporters fell silent. For once, there was nothing to twist. Keisha lowered her eyes, whispering to Malik, "Maybe they'll start believing women like me now." He smiled gently. "They will, because you didn't stop." As cameras flashed, Keisha stood. She walked to the podium, took a breath, and said, "They try to bury a man alive. And when I spoke up, they try to bury me in lies. But you can't bury the truth forever." The room erupted. Applause, emotion, a wave of vindication that washed through the noise. That night, as she stood outside the courthouse under the neon glow, Malik joined her quietly. "Feels different now," he said. "Yeah," she whispered, watching the city lights reflect in her dark eyes. "He got his life back, and I got my voice back." A pause, the kind of silence that means peace instead of fear. Somewhere behind them, sirens wailed, distant now, not threatening, just the sound of a world still spinning. Keisha exhaled, her words steady, her faith unbroken. "If you believe this should never happen again, share this now. And to my USA, UK, and Canadian viewers, your voice is power. Use it